Good morning, fellow Sovereigners. Sovereigns, sorry, got the word mixed up. And this morning's talk was going to be about we will overcome and we will deal with this, but that's not true. The fact is we are dealing with this and we are overcoming it. So, some of you have heard that we've had some rain here in New Zealand. And some of you in New Zealand have experienced some rain. And yes, it's rained. And it's been unseasonable rain. It normally doesn't rain here where I am right now. Normally the grass is brown or dead. So it's either brown or grey. Today it's very green. I'll just turn it around for a moment and you can see the greenery I don't know if you can see this, but it's unseasonably green, which is great for ducks. It's probably great for the sheep and cattle farmers. It's not good for the wine growers. So everything serves and limits. So it's just incredibly green, whereas normally it's brown, and overcast skies. So the thing that we need to remember is about perspective. Well, no, there's two things. One is what actually happened, and two is what happened about what happened. So first of all, they said that in Auckland they had a quarter of their annual rainfall in one day, in 24 hours. Now that's partly true. That happened in a very small part of Auckland, in the west of Auckland, out Henderson, Swanson area. And the rest of Auckland got rain, but they just had normal rain. Unseasonable, yes, but just normal rain. And so the flooding that happened, and it was terrible. Let's acknowledge that. People have lost their homes. People have lost cars. Their elderly people have been, and young children, more disabled people, let's say, have had a hell of a time. And so there's an awful lot of misery going on, let's say, and a lot of uncertainty and grief happening. That's happening. However, there is always two sides to this, and I had a very short message conversation, if you like, with a friend who lives south of Auckland, Janine, and just wanted to know how she was, if she was okay. And her focus was on the fact that, yes, there's been some rain and there's been a bit of cleaning up needed. Her focus was on the amazing community, the people that just turned up to help. And everybody put down their tools and went in to help whoever needed it the most. And that human spirit, we've got a car coming up the road, the human spirit just doesn't give up. And you can't make us give up. When there's an issue, a problem, people just do. They step in and help out. And so I think, one, we need to be careful about the facts. What part of Auckland? It wasn't the whole of Auckland. It wasn't the whole of New Zealand. Most of the North Island got rain. But it was only a tiny, tiny fraction of the North Island that actually had the massive problem. So first of all, it's just be careful about details. And secondly, look at the other side of it. What happens? And a friend of mine, Sue, years ago, suggested that whales strand themselves. I don't know if they do this on purpose, but it was suggested they do this on purpose to bring people together. And whether that's true or not, the fact is, whenever there is a whale stranding, what happens? People get together. They work together for a common good. They work for whales that they don't know. They don't know the names of these whales. They've never met them before. And yet here are all these people out helping. And so we can look at the tragedy, or we can look at the amazingness of people when we get together, of humans. And it was interesting, I watched Jurassic Park last night for the second time, and I realised it was someone's message, whoever made the movie, or who wrote it, or produced it. It was their message about mucking about with nature. And when we do that, it's only bad can happen. However, good ends up, because nature always wins. And so, of course, with all this rain, there's a lot of talk about the fact this absolutely unusual rain I mean, I had a friend, Evie, over in Dubai, and she said they've had flooding there, and I think that's the first time ever. And of course, in a desert place like Dubai, they don't have facilities built for dealing with floods. And so it's just unprecedented. And of course, because of that, there are a lot of stories, a lot of believable stories, quite credible stories, that all of this is being manipulated. And it was quite evident last year in Australia when the pilots of the planes who were doing the cloud seeding, who were creating the rain, they went on strike because they wanted more pay. And so it became very public. So it sounds like it is manipulated in some way. And whether it is or not, it is what's happening. So complaining about whether someone's creating our weather or not doesn't actually deal with the situation. What does deal with the situation is being still, being present, being peaceful. And from that moment of peacefulness, from that moment of stillness, we can then start acting in a positive, cooperative, communicative, supportive way with each other. And that's what happens when, like, all of the people that where Janine lives, the people working together. And in so many places there were people just stepping in and helping out. At the same time that the politicians were standing there giving pretty little speeches. They are not relevant to us. They're just somewhere in the peripheral. What is relevant to us is this moment here, and the person next to us, and the person next to them. And that is our relevant moment. Our presence and our stillness brings us to the first person next to us, and then the next person. And so we can go blaming the world out there, but nothing happens. Or we can stand still and look at this moment. Look at our feet. My beautiful feet. Painted purple, actually, at the moment. Some young person decided I needed purple toenails. So I have. And so the world is still here. You're still here. You're still watching this. So I'm trying to get the light right. And the world's going on. And so rather than saying we will overcome all this, we can overcome all this, let us acknowledge that we have. We've already done that simply by being who we are. And we are part of the nature. And as per the Jurassic Park, where someone tried to meddle with it and nature creates its own balance, when people try to meddle with us, we create our own balance and we come back to center. We come back to peace. We come back to stillness. And from that moment, because the Course of Miracles, and I hate to go on about the Course of Miracles, but it happens to be relevant for this moment. It talks about the choices that we have. We can either act from anger or act from grievance, which is not a powerful place to come from. Or we can choose to act from peace. And peace doesn't mean we do nothing. Forgiveness doesn't mean we allow things to happen. Peace and forgiveness brings us back to a place of centeredness, of okayness, and from that moment, from that state, we can act. And from that moment and from that place of peace, we can change the world. Because I changed the world last night. I noticed I'm in a situation now where the news is on and the weather's on. I don't normally watch those, but last night the weather forecast here, as the rain was stopping, the weather forecast here was for storm warning for the next 24 hours. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in the last 2 or 3 years, every single weather forecast is always worse than the reality. And I don't know if they're ramping up the fear factor or not. I just think it's quite funny. My forecast is looking out here and it's fine. My forecast last night was the rain is stopping. It wasn't the forecast that was on the TV saying there's a storm coming. So we can choose our place of focus. We can focus on the devastation in Auckland, or we can focus on the cooperation of people who help each other in Auckland. We can focus on the news, which is always negative, negative, or we can focus on our news. We can be the news. I was going to stop, and I'll keep going. I think it's about time I stopped. So I simply am reminding myself, and perhaps you, that rather than saying we are going to overcome all this, we have already, because we're here, and we're still, and we're peaceful. Thank you for listening, and have a beautiful, spiffing, peaceful day.